What's up, world, and welcome back to the Global Frequency. I'm your host, Nefarious, and it's Monday, which means that we do not have a frequency girl. It is just us guys in the house having fun, making noise. And our special guest tonight is John Hervey from Beyond Time Comics, here to tell us all about his current comic book crowdfunding campaign, Black Tiger, Hidden Dragon Volume 2, now live on Indiegogo. John, what is up, my dude?
What is up, Neff? How's it going, my man?
I am doing well. I'm glad to have you with me because honestly, I would be lonely on a Monday night if I wasn't hanging out with you. Because Frequency Girl has left for parts unknown. I actually know exactly where she is, but she's singing with her friends and having a great time, and I'm down here in the basement. So thank you so much for keeping me company tonight and coming on to talk about your awesome book. And with that, why don't we get into the show? So why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, like where you're from and whether or not you are related to the 7th Marquis of Bristol by any chance?
If that 7th Marquis, I think is that the one that went kind of nuts?
Yes, but he is John Hervey.
Yeah, he is John Hervey. So yes, I am John Hervey. My relation to the 7th Marquis, I don't know. I'd say that maybe there's some bloodline there, or
there's got to be. There's absolutely got to be. I'm gonna put it on the screen.
I don't want to get your show.
That's him right there. He is a cranky looking Brit.
Yeah, I mean,
I see the family resemblance.
So, my thoughts are either there's some bloodline there, or maybe like some of his folks owned my folks.
But look, he was the knife-throwing, drug-addicted something or other. I know, he's a mad lad, right? The satanic Marquis, the knife-throwing, drug-addicted John Hervey, Britain's most amoral aristocrat. So if you're going to have to be named after some sort of British aristocracy, you definitely want to be named after the dude who was crazy on coke and threw knives at people.
And I am John Hervey II. So
John Hervey is the second coming of John Hervey.
Do with that as you will. I will neither confirm nor deny.
Sounds like the character played by Daniel Day-Lewis in The Gangs of New York, the Bill the Butcher, whoopsie daisy, throwing knives at people and getting blitzed on like what was it, the cup of fire, which was the weird alcohol and opium mixture that they would drink every year at the on the anniversary of the preacher's demise when yeah. Anyway, it was a fun movie. I love that movie. Yeah, I love Daniel Day-Lewis. I think he's great in everything. Everything does. So yeah, you need to get a Daniel Day-Lewis character in one of your books. Maybe one of your many books that you've put out, which we will talk about in a minute. So where are you from if you're not from the UK?
I was born in Inglewood, California. My parents were from Michigan. So they came out from Detroit to LA, and I was born out in LA. Grew up there my whole life. Spent the majority of my life out in LA. In 2019, my wife, my 3 kids, we moved out to Houston. So we have been in Houston since late 2019, October of 2019
Right. So you went to USC, right?
I did.
Attended MIT for your MBA. Right?
I did.
I know you were at Texas Capital as a senior VP. I don't know if you're still there, if that's what you're still up to. So yeah, like, why the fuck are you making comic books, my dude? You're a senior VP at a renowned investment firm, with an MBA from MIT.
Because I love
Slade,
comics.
Lucy.
Because I love comics. I mean, if it weren't for comics, I wouldn't have even been reading as a kid. Comics have always been my first love. I've loved them since I was a kid. I loved them, used to get them off the spinner rack at the drugstore. And it's a passion that I've kept my whole life. I mean, my wife, she came to the stark realization that I am a humongous nerd. I remember the first time we went to a comic show together. It was like culture shock for her. She was just like, I really didn't know who you were. She's like, you were talking to people, but I couldn't understand what you were saying.
I didn't understand the words coming out of your mouth.
Yeah, she was like, you were holding conversations, but it was like you were speaking a different language.
I thought I had a stroke. I didn't understand anything.
She's just like, who are you?
Who does speak that language? You know who does speak the language of comics? The great folks in our chat. What a segue, right?
Let's go.
We got Mo Biggs. We have also got Maddie Fowler, Shigama. Thank you so much for coming, my Doge, Maddie. We've got Dave Brink from Genuine Comics. We have the one and only unhinged Jason Bascom. We have got Edwin Bloodbone Second Chance Campaign on Fun of the Comic, Acevedo. I'm still just going to call you the Ace, because it's easier, right? Even though I call you by your ridiculously long name every time I see you. And we've also got Hicks Villain. What is up, Hicks? Thank you so much for stopping by, hanging out with us. Mo Biggs is making the illusion saying you are somehow, I don't know, the Biz Marquee. Get it? Like the
there you go. I like that. There we
Bristol.
go.
Yeah, he's the Biz Marquee. Nice.
Biz Marquee.
And we got John Rossi with us on Facebook. Wonderful Facebook viewers. Glad that we have people tuning in from over there. It'd be great if we could get some more viewers on Twitch that aren't Twitch bots. But thanks, John, for checking us out and hanging out with us on a Monday night when I'm so lonely and on my lonesome without my co-host. So yeah, I was saying most of us humble creators can't hold down a day job, but you like wear a tie and shit. Or are you doing it remotely?
I do go into the office most days, and if I'm not, I'm client facing. So the good thing is I suit up, but I rarely wear a tie. With that said, I did wear one last week, but I rarely have to wear the tie anymore. But I'm pretty well suited up otherwise.
He's like, for me, if I'm such a senior VP, I'm such a senior VP, I just don't wear the tie. Not anymore.
I don't have it like that. I don't have it like that. It's just kind of how the bank culture has changed. When I first started in banking, everyone wore ties every day. Didn't matter,
And now everyone's a crypto bro, so they don't wear any ties at all. They wear like weird horn rimmed glasses, and they all have bow ties. And no, those are hipsters, not bankers. My bad. But I would imagine that it's changed a lot since back in the day.
It's changed a ton. I mean, bankers, you figure if you're working a corporate job, they make it so that you're a corporate wage slave. You have to be wearing a suit, So like, I'll go see most of my clients. I mean, they own stuff, so they're chilling. They're dressed like you are. I'm dressed in a suit, which lets them know that I'm the corporate wage slave.
Right, which lets them know that like you're on the clock, right?
Absolutely.
You're the one,
I'm on the clock, and I'm
pushing the pencils.
Somebody's got to push
crunching the numbers.
Somebody's got to crush those numbers.
Right. Yeah, paper pusher.
I got to pay for my comic book edition somehow.
Exactly, and especially with what's going on these days, and we'll get into that towards the end of the show. But what kind of comics do you like to read?
I'm across the board. I mean, I started off.
Speaking of, we have our Twitch bot. Hello, Twitch bot. Thank you so much for stopping by. We have got Koshak 8 Sweeter Dreamer person. I'm glad we have a Twitch bot. Yes, awesome.
Show wouldn't be complete without that.
Would not. We have our viewer, our loyal viewer John Rossi on Facebook, and we have our Twitch bot.
That's right.
And everyone else is on YouTube. So I was saying, what kind of comic books do you like to read?
So, like I said, across the board, but I mean, my first love and kind of primary love were always superhero books. I always loved the idea of kind of the good versus evil. I always loved the hero, fighting all kinds of odds and being selfless. I always loved that in comics. I mean, comics, Marvel and DC don't deliver that today, but that's what got me into comics. And then I started to expand. I mean, I started reading war comics. Back in the day, there were a lot more publishers and there's a lot more access to comics. And even the big comic book publishers did a lot of other books. I mean, Marvel did a whole bunch of horror books. DC had like a book that I used to collect called All Out War. And it's like I would collect war comics, I would collect horror comics, sci-fi. I love sci-fi, I love fantasy. I mean, for me, I just compel me with a story. Compel me with a story, and I'm down. I'm along for the ride.
But who is your favorite superhero?
I'll answer that in pieces. My favorite. So, all right, my favorite superhero, probably the superhero that got me into comics, was Spider-Man, Peter Parker. I just loved Peter Parker. I love Spider-Man. I picked up like my mom got me one of those books with like kind of the reprints of the classic Spider-Man comics. So it kind of had like a book of those, and then started picking up Amazing Spider-Man. So I mean, it's funny. You kind of fast forward to today. There's a lot of different Spider-Men. My middle son, he's gotten himself into. I've kind of indoctrinated him, so he does read some comics. I get him I have to be careful what indies I give him because a lot of the indies can be very adult. But he likes to pick up Spider-Man, and it's funny. He asked me, he's like, "Hey, Dad, which Spider-Man is your favorite Spider-Man?" I was like, "Listen, there's only one Spider-Man." I'm like, Peter Parker, Spider-Man. I was like, yeah, Miles Morales is a Spider-Man. I said, but Peter Parker, he's the Spider-Man. He is the Amazing Spider-Man. So it's funny. I guess maybe, I don't know if it's a generational thing or whatever, but Peter Parker's my guy.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of different Spider people these days, and I'm fine with that. I like Penny Parker because she has a mecha. Just because I think that's cute and kind of funny. And I like Miles. I think Miles is a great character. I think that they did a good job with him in the Spider-Verse.
Agreed.
The first movie. I think his comics, I didn't read all of his comics, but I read some of his comics. I think they've jumped the shark on Miles Morales at this point.
Absolutely.
It's like the only black character that they have or something. I'm like, nah, just he's a good character. Leave him in his own universe. Don't make him Miles Morales Thor and Miles Morales this and that. And that's kind of insulting. But I enjoyed him as a character. Like I said, I liked Penny, but I think it got like a little bit off the rails when you got, Charlie Weber Spider-Man, who's the guy with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. He's the spider guy with the crutches.
Yeah,
and I think that they jumped the shark in general. Marvel's really done a lot of like weird stuff to try and capitalize on that IP, and do strange iterations of it. But like you said, the original stuff really is what established the hero in that element and kind of defined what Spider-Man is. So holding true to that original part of the ethos is probably best. You got to start people off learning the original before we can get to that the later iterations of the Spider-Verse, right? We got Jay Ryan with us. What is up, Jay Ryan? We've also got D-Wag tuning in. Hicksville saying Mary Jane don't love Spider-Man anymore. That's not true. Mary Jane will always love Spider-Man because I have comic books in my long boxes that says she does. This current, Mary Jane Spider-Man storyline, that's Spider-Man storyline from current year. But our Mary Jane will always love our spicy man.
Spicy.
Because I was thinking about Gwen Stacy, and for some reason it came out spicy man. I don't know.
Spicy man. Well, what was always fun about comics? I mean, when I got into comics, all these books were well into their hundreds. Some of them heading towards their 200s in terms of number. But the way they were all written was you could jump on in any issue. So like each issue maybe 2 issues would contain a completed story arc, and any references that you need, they gave you the references in the book. So it's like, I don't know what number I started picking up Spider-Man at. So it's like you picked up Spider-Man and you're off to the races. You just start reading and you just go, you know? And I think it gave a level of accessibility to comics that some of the big boys, well, the big boys, I don't think they have it anymore. You know, so, and it's like, also the comics were, they played their proper role, which was to entertain. And, you know, for you to look and say like, man, that's, you know, you've got these guys who've got this power, and it's like, how easy is it just to say like they're going to, you know, they're going to do the easy thing. That's not comics, you know. And you see these characters today, and you're just like, what are they doing? They suck. You know, I want to see a character. I want to see a character that's heroic. You know, people say, oh, that's unrealistic. No, it's called heroism.
Well, John, let me stop you right there. Heroism demands sacrifice, right? Mm-hmm. It requires that you put someone else's needs, usually the needs of something far greater than yourself, before your own. It's sacrifice. Do you think modern readers resonate with that at all? Man, no, they're all about instant gratification, what's on TikTok, what's doing, you know, like what is me, the center of the universe. They're not going to want to read a character that's heroic in that traditional sense, because that type of heroism, self-sacrifice, nobility, none of that resonates with them, you know?
Well,
it's better to have like these other characters whose ideologies and identities fit neatly in boxes, prepackaged and given out to people so that they can go, oh, I like that. It resonates with me because I need to identify myself by the causes that I support and the check boxes in my identity, right? You establish your perspective and relationship to the world based off of your sex, ethnicity, orientation, color, all of that other stuff, all of the nonsense people have to use to decide who they are these days. You can't just be a person.
Well, there's no room. There's no room.
I'm going off the rails.
Well, there's no room for heroism in socialism. There's no room for heroism in Marxism.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
There really isn't, and that's you know that's kind of the tune of the day. That's what the children are being taught in school. You know, that's
I resonate with the quiet dignity of the Queen of England. Nicely done. Nicely done, Jeremy. John Rossi wants to know if you had to choose a Spider-Man actor, who would it be? Now, is this a Spider-Man actor who's already played Spider-Man, or could we go like Robert Pattinson? You know what I mean? Not that I would go Robert Pattinson.
I wouldn't go Robert.
Somebody who...
you know what? I enjoyed the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I think the first 2 Spider-Man movies were the best Spider-Man movies ever made. Period. It's funny. I was showing my sons the movie, and at first they couldn't get over the, you know, because technology moves so fast. I remember seeing that movie. I was like in 2003 in the theater, and said, "This is amazing." You know, my son and I were watching it on the TV. He's like, "These graphics suck." You know, I'm like, "Listen, just suspend that and watch the story." And he even had to admit, he's like, "Man, those first 2 movies were so well written, and they captured Spider-Man, the essence of who Spider-Man is, so well." You know, so I mean, Tobey Maguire, I loved him as Spider-Man. I thought he did a great job. You know, he's got the awkwardness of Peter Parker, because fundamentally, I mean, it's like he puts on the Spider-Man mask, and it's like a different persona. I thought Andrew Garfield did a good job, but Peter Parker isn't cool like that. He was like the cool rebel Peter Parker. That's not who Peter Parker is. Peter Parker's a nerd.
I liked Tom Holland, but I think you are right with the dichotomy between wearing the suit and not wearing the suit. Tom Holland was still Tom Holland when he was in the suit. He really wasn't that different from Tom Holland. Like, he was still wisecracking, making jokes, kind of awkward. It was a cute persona. I enjoyed his one-liners, but then I think it was mostly Filoni and the directing that made that character enjoyable. I really liked the first Tom Holland Spider-Man though, with what's his name from Multiplicity? I can't remember. Keaton, right? Yeah. It was Keaton. Yeah, he was a good Vulture, and I thought
It was a
Vulture was
great
a really
Vulture.
cool idea for a character. Like Marvel used to be okay, guys. Like
Oh,
it
absolutely.
wasn't that long ago. But when we think about the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, I remember a story where they had to pull a scene from it because he weaves a web between the two towers. And they had to pull the scene from
Oh,
the ending of the two towers because
yeah,
it happened right around that time. So when I think about it, I'm like, that's a 20-year-old movie.
yeah, absolutely.
John, that movie's
Absolutely.
over 20 years old. We're so old. We're
I
so
know, I
old.
know, I know. And it's one of those things where like the storyline holds up so well, but it's just you when you watch it, I was just like, you're watching the special effects, and my son was just like, oh, I'm just like, I was like, no, just get into the movie, you'll enjoy it. And he did. But I was just like, man, this was a long time ago. It was '01. It was
Right.
'01.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
That's insane.
It's crazy. I remember this story. I remember there's also a scene in, I think it's that movie. It's that version. I think it might have been the second one, but there's everybody on the Brooklyn Bridge
Mm-hmm.
when the car's dangling off of it. And they put a line in the movie, "This is New York. You mess with one of us, you mess with all of us." And they all start
That's right.
throwing garbage at what's his name, who's like, slicing it at Peter as he's dangling from the bridge. And I
Yeah.
remember that line hit. I mean, that's the thing. I don't remember shit, John. Like I can't
Yeah.
remember anything. So when something leaves an indelible mark on me like that, where it stands out in my mind to such an extent, you know that they hit a chord that seared it into my memory. And I remember seeing that and just being like, that's it right there. That's the whole, everything that's going on right now is right there in that movie.
But you
It
know
was, it was
what? That
wonderful.
was that was Marvel in the '60s and '70s. I
Yep.
remember reading like Fantastic Four books, and you got
Yeah.
that feel from not just from the four, but from the city. It's like, hey man, people better not mess with the Fantastic Four. The people will try to rally. And
Right.
you're just like, there's just something really cool about this world. And the
Yep.
heroes are just an extension of that heroism. And I was just like, because back in the day, basically every superhero was in New York City,
Right.
in the Marvel universe.
In the Marvel
You know,
universe, yeah. And in DC, you had like, um, you had Metropolis, you had Gotham, you had Star City, right? You had a whole bunch of different locations which weren't specifically real world places, but kind of took after real world places, right?
right.
Um, and they were all very different, right? Like Metropolis was actually very metropolitan. It was after like New York, and it was hustling and bustling, right? And you had Gotham, which was dark and foreboding and crime ridden, right? And then you
Yeah.
had what was the city Flash was from? Was it Capital City? I don't remember now.
I
I
wanted to
don't
say
remember the
Star
name
City.
of
Was it Capital
Star. Was it
City?
Star City?
Star City?
I don't remember. But it was like a town, right? It was almost like the whole place was suburbs, and everybody
Yeah.
knew each other, and everybody loved Flash. And I have to say, of all of the older comics that I read from DC, I really liked Flash because it felt the most comic booky. Like
Yeah.
his villains were comical. He would beat them by being the Flash, and there never really seemed to be any real malice or onus there. Not like
Yeah.
Batman villains, right? Like, and even in
Right.
like the 80s, 90s, Flash went through he went through some stuff, but the villains were never like Bane breaking Batman's spine. Like that shit
No.
would never happen in a Flash comic.
But that's why one of the things I loved in terms of animated shows, I really loved Justice League and Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah,
And
those were
I
good
thought
shows. Yep.
they brought some of the best of all this different mythos from the DC universe into one. And one of the things with the Flash was just that. I mean, even when you would visit, I think it was Star City, or they'd have things that revolved around Flash, I mean, you just saw that like his whole world was different. His villains were different. And he'd have to talk to his villains. you know, and they'd be like,
Yep.
yeah, you know,
Yep. There was
oh,
that
yeah,
scene.
yeah, I'm
I know what
sorry.
you're talking about. There's a scene where they're going and looking for his like rogues gallery, and he goes into
Yeah.
the bar where all of them hang out together. Like all of the villains hang out in this one bar. And was it the trickster guy who was sitting there at the bar planning on like doing something? And Flash walks up to him. He's like, I need to know, what are they planning? What are they doing? Like, oh, they're gonna ambush you at the ceremony at at City Hall. He's like, thanks so much. Now
Thank
finish
you.
your beer and I'll get you back in time for pudding or whatever it was.
Right.
Like, you're off your meds again. It was just like, that's how he beat his villain. He's just talked to them and he's like, yeah, okay, thanks, Flash. Like, this is one of his serious villains. So the guy played by Mark Hamill, for fuck's sake, right?
I know.
So yeah, like I enjoy that. For me, that's kind of what I would consider these days to be subversion, because so much of what we see these days is like serious, gritty, I don't want to say realism because it's like exaggerated beyond realism, but it's like
Absolutely.
very dark comics. So having like a villain like that where Flash just shows up and he's like, you're off your meds, it's time to get you back to the asylum, I'll let you finish your beer if you tell me where they're going. Like,
But that's also the reason why.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Got like sign sounds really. Sorry, guys. But yeah, but that was the reason why I love Justice League Unlimited so much, is because they realized that you had all these elements working together in the same universe, and they made it work. You still had Gotham. Not everything was dark. I mean, you had Metropolis, which looked like a city of the future. You had Gotham, which felt more like a Chicago,
Chicago,
like a 20s Chicago or something, right?
Yeah.
And then you had this Star City, but they realized that, like, you know what, all these things, they can coexist.
Yeah. And that was a really cleverly done thing that made DC enjoyable, in my opinion. Now,
and just because Batman was, you know what it was? You had Batman, you had Wolverine, and then everyone decided everything needed to be dark. So all of a sudden, it's like, you know, it's all of a sudden people just became knockoffs. It's like, when did Green Arrow become basically Batman with arrows? You know, when it's like you start doing this.
I remember he used to have a punching glove arrow. Like, that's specifically designed to be non-lethal, guys. He knocks out the bad guy with his boxing glove arrow.
That's dope. You know, he's gonna knock you out. You know.
What's up, Ollie? What's up?
Oliver?
So, I was going to ask you about Beyond Time Incorporated and its multiple subsidiaries and shell corporations through which you import and export things. And yet also make comics, right?
Yeah.
So it was founded in 2011, right? You've been serving as a board member, establishing policies and corporate management to help decisions on major company issues, such as organizational planning, monitor, and managing financial resources, and also writing comic books. So tell me about your company, and what is, what's the deal with Beyond Time Inc.?
Basically, I get to do some consulting that I can use to make comics with. I can use some of those dollars to make comics.
Nice. And tying the two together means that you can move.
That's my play money. So basically I love making comics. As you all know, it's not a cheap venture to make comic books.
It's not.
Oftentimes you see people's campaigns, and the campaigns may be funded, but that does not mean the project is fully funded. Okay?
Right. The goals may not be reflective of what went into making the comic. It might be reflective of maybe the print run to print the comic to try and make up some of that money and recoup it, right?
Or what's left after you've already done a certain amount of production already. So, I mean, you hit the goal because you want to collect that money, but oftentimes you have to hit a multiple of that number if you were really going to break even on a book.
Yes.
You know?
So we got Snuggie with us. Like I said, we had Ollie.
Ollie.
So it's funny, you have Beyond Time Inc., which is financial consulting, and then you have Beyond Time Comics spun off of that, so you can absorb debt from the comics to write off the taxes connected to the consulting firm and be able to share the income over to the second venture. I like how you're doing that, man.
Absolutely.
I like how you're doing that. You're funding comics and also claiming loss. That's the way we do it here. That's the way a lot of people that I know who are doing comics are doing it. It's the best way, in my opinion, to go about it because you're paying artists, you're paying people to help you make the books, and you just get the tax write-off.
Yeah, let me tell you, comics, that's just the business. So that means I have to do research. I have to buy comics because that's part of my research. So I mean,
exactly, yeah, R&D, right? Although they're fucking with us now with this new tax law where you have to have a particular bank account and a specific yearly budget earmarked for R&D with the money for that budget set up in that account ahead of time.
That's such BS.
Yeah, that's some bullshit. I can't just make purchases as I want and call it R&D anymore. The fuck is up with that, IRS? Go audit some multi-million-dollar corporations. Stop nickel and diming me.
Seriously, darn, let us do our R&D. And I don't know what my R&D. I don't know what my R&D budget is yet. I can't tell you.
I don't know how much I have.
Darn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Messing up everything,
so you're an established creator, right? Through Beyond Time, you've done The Orphans. You did Black Tiger: Legacy of Fury, Magna, The Last Pantheon, The Posse. You are a credited writer, but I assume you take on an even greater role in the production processes for all of these books, right? So why don't you tell me about what you do when you make comics?
All right, so as you guys know, it's a multi-pronged process to make comics. So for me, along with the creating and the writing of the books, my wife and I, she's an amazing editor. Basically, from top to bottom, she's the one that really kind of brings a voice of a totally different voice, because her love isn't comics. So she looks at it from the perspective of more of like literature. So I can get caught up in just my love of comics, but I've got to be able to tell a good story to get her compelled. So she's the perfect editor. She respects comics, but she's not in comics as deeply as I am. So I write, and when I write, it starts off with the brainstorming for ideas. I get an idea so the way I have been writing, Neff, is I've been writing in story arcs, but I'm also going to start writing. I'm going to start writing some stories that are much more self-contained as well, and that's another part of the conversation we can have. But what I have been writing are story arcs. So I've been basically putting the whole scripting together. I've been writing it, working with my wife to really kind of hone in and make sure that I'm telling the story, the beats that I want to tell, kind of in the pacing that I want to have it with. And I fully script out everything. So different people script different ways. Some people kind of like the Marvel way, where they'll just do a lot of dialogue and the artists figure out how to, or they'll say at the top of the page, these are the things that are happening. You figure out how to lay it out. I like to lay things out. And it's not because I want to be the final say. I just want the artist to know what I'm envisioning. And then oftentimes I feel like when I do that, like you said, you work with Rod, you work with different artists. And I feel like when I'm able to give an artist a vision, then they can say like, hey, I know where you're trying to go, and I've got a better way to get there. Or I see what you're doing. That'll actually work really well. Let me make some tweaks. Or, maybe we need to go back to the drawing board on this once they know what the vision is. So then it's just a completely iterative process. So then I'm working with the penciler. The penciler usually give me thumbs. I'll give feedback on that, and then we'll get pencil pages. And
so you realize that you're not a comic book writer. You really are for all intents and purposes, a creator. And were you in industry comics, you would be taking on the job of project managing editor. Like you
Yes.
would be the managing editor on a project because you're taking the story and script and editing it with the writer and making it work. And you're working with your wife to do that, which is great because she's kind of like your sounding board. She's almost your assistant editor in that regard, pretending that John, the writer, is a separate individual, right? But then you're
Right.
taking that and you're working with the artist to do the lines, the pencils, the layouts, and all of that. Then you work with the inker, then you work with the colorist, and I'm sure you have input at every stage of the process. That is a
Absolutely.
unique ability that is cultivated in indie comics that you do not see in a lot of people working in mainstream industry comics or even just regular
Absolutely.
industry comics. As indie, you need to be able to wear all the hats, right? But if you're on the
Absolutely.
industry, you could just be a writer and all you do is write the script and turn it into the
Mhm.
editor, and the editor asks you for some rewrites or whatever, and that's it. Or you could be the line artist working on a script, working and turning things into the editor, and the editor is giving you feedback on the layouts that you're doing for the script that you're reading. But each part of the process there is segregated, it's
That's
segmented,
right.
like each one is in
That's
its own
right.
little box. You have to do all the shit, which can get really overwhelming at times. I should know. It really is. It's kind of overwhelming at times because you're wearing all of the hats in so many ways,
Yes.
despite having someone that you're working with in each different step of the process. So it's not like you're doing it all alone. No, you're doing it with someone else who's doing it. And if you're not with them doing it, they might not be doing it right. So it does
Absolutely.
demand all of your attention to
Yes.
do that. And you're doing like four different things. Because on top of all of that, you're still worrying about pre-press, you're worrying about printing, you're
Mhm.
worried about then you're worried about fulfillment. So if you're
That's right.
crowdfunding, there's a whole nother layer to it, a whole nother dimension. So getting involved in this is like it's really not for the faint of heart. And you've
No.
done like 5 books. And I'm like, John Hervey's got his shit together. Look at this man go.
Man, I
We
appreciate
got
that.
Ichthus. What is up? Total excellence. We got Ichthus with
What's
us.
up? Yeah, I appreciate that. And there's also the marketing piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's another thing that a lot of people don't talk about, and we probably should. So, do you want to jump into Black Tiger, Hidden Dragon, Volume 2? Do you want to talk about the campaign, or do you just want to keep
Yeah.
having a conversation?
I mean, I'm good either way because I'm kind of enjoying this conversation as well. I mean,
Nice. We got
there's,
Zaid Comics. What's up, Phil? We
what's up,
got
Phil?
Dean. What is up, Comics Mate? What's up, Dean? Glad to have you with us.
What's
Um,
up?
Yeah, so I know we all love Rod and Rod we trust, right? So
Yes.
how did you get Rod on Black Tiger and you had Rod before Bancroft had Rod, right? Like Bancroft's getting the sloppy seconds, right? He's getting sloppy second Rod. I'm sitting here getting like the thirds, all right? So I don't care. I know how good he is.
Hey,
So how did
Rod's
you
amazing.
find Rod Looper? How did you start working with him?
I started working with Rod back in like 2005. The way Rod and I got connected back in the day, there was no deviant art. There wasn't all this social media. There were forums. So digital webbing was a forum, and
God,
it
you're
was.
old.
I am freaking old. It's like no, and my daughter just reminded me that. Oh my gosh, she's like, Daddy, you're old. I'm like, thank you, baby. Um, so the way digital webbing worked, it was a forum, and for you kiddies out there that don't know how the forums work, they were kind of like speed dating. So it's like you post something in the forum. Hey, I'm looking for an artist, and then the speed dating begins. A whole bunch of folks start responding. Hey, I'm a line
Yeah.
artist, and they, you know, give you some samples, blah blah blah. So you're kind of doing the speed dating thing. You're going through it, and then you find some stuff that maybe you like. Start talking to folks. I was talking with one guy, and he started doing some samples, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm kind of digging this Black Tiger, but I think I'd rather do something more sci-fi. But I got a guy that you should talk to. I know a guy." So he put me in contact with Rod, and so it began. I mean, Rod and I hit it off from the get-go. I provided him with my first issue script. It had always been a 6-issue miniseries. I provided him with the first issue script, and we started chopping away at it. And the thing that I love, and even when I go back and I reread Legacy of Fury, the thing that I love, and it's the thing I love in comics, is I feel like throughout that series and continuing now, I mean, we really hit our stride together as a writer and as a line artist,
creative duo.
Yeah, and like, I think we really found our groove, and we've really got it now in Hidden Dragon. And Rod has found, I know it's penciling, but he's found his voice, in the story.
Your layouts are really good, I have to say. I've seen almost all of your pages. I've seen almost all of them because it's Rod, and Rod likes to show off his stuff. And I saw all of your line art pages from the new book, like the stunners, the ones that you put on the campaign that are inked, because those are some freaking beautiful. And I really do think like he's gotten his layouts for Black Tiger down. He and I are still working on some of them for Mavericks. I'm gonna pop this one up on the screen real quick. Like, he does excellent work, right? Like his line work is crazy, but he and I are still trying to get our bearings when it comes to the layouts here. And I'd say like the pages for Black Tiger, they're really well thought through. Like the clarity there is definitely apparent. There's a whole readable flow to the page. And I think Rod and I'll get there eventually, but this is just us starting off. But I mean, look at the illustration, it's like the illustration that he's doing is so tight. It's so good. I love his line work.
Oh man. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's really something else.
Anyways,
okay, that's how you found Rod. Yeah,
that's the fun of the creative process. I think as creators work together, you find your groove. It's funny. I always see people posting about who's your favorite, penciler, who's your favorite inker, but it's always the dynamic duo. It's like what exactly? Thanks, comics mate.
Hicks Villain's like, what's next? Pencil Jack? What's next? Pencil Jack? Yeah. These guys are they're calling you out, man. They're calling both of us out.
Hey man, but I can't deny it.
What's a forum?
I'm like Methuselah in this thing.
No, it's just Dean. Dean's just young. That's what it is.
Is that what it
just
is?
A spring chicken.
Yeah,
we've got Odin. Speaking of spring chickens, now Odin's a baby too, though. He really is.
He's a smart baby though. Michael is.
Yeah, he's a smart baby. He's working with me.
He is a wealth of knowledge.
Mo says some tight panel work, but as Rod starts to insinuate himself into the creative direction, it's going to get a lot more hard hitting, and we won't be ready for Rod's splash pages. Man, Mo going hard on the innuendo.
What just happened?
What were we going hard?
Were we talking about comics?
Yeah, we're talking about comics. I'm just talking about comics. So tell me more about the team behind the book, other than Rod. We talk about Rod all the time on this channel, even when we're not talking about Rod.
That's because
why do you have a background editor? That was one thing that I noticed. I was looking at the page. I'm gonna add it to the campaign. Add the campaign page to the screen real quick. And I was noticing you've got a dream team set up here, right? Like you have a whole group of people that got their shit going on, that you brought together.
Further up there.
Jesus Christ, could you put enough art on this campaign? For fuck's sake, John Hervey.
If people want original Rod Looper art, it's there. And it's not going to get cheaper, because once the campaign is over,
if they want to own some Rod of their own.
They want their own Rod. It's not going to get cheaper, because after this it goes to auction.
There it is. That's what I was looking for. So Alex Garcia, background editor. Does Rod's background need editing? What's up there?
No, what it is, there's a particular segment, probably a third of the book, where it was kind of my ode to Court of Owls. She is in fundamentally a maze of death, and in that maze of death, there are monitors, and it basically is showing that she has been being monitored from the beginning. So it shows images from prior issues, things that have happened in her past, in the past of the prior Black Tiger. So basically, he was doing editing work. He was literally putting backgrounds on these screens. So the way that we created them is, we basically did, the colors basically did like a green screen for the screens, and then Alex, and it took a good amount of time and a good amount of effort. We took choice images and we put them on the screens, and it's all relevant to the story. So these were things that were pretty well thought of in the first place. So that is the reason why we needed that special skill, and Alex brought that to the table, and it was really great.
You've worked with Vinicius before, right?
Yes, yeah. So that's my guy. I mean, in terms of coloring, I mean, if you look at some of the pages, I mean, you want to talk about Rod line work, and if you go up, you can see that. Yeah, it's there too. But if you go up, you see Rod's line work, Vinicius's colors, and you're just like, these things complement each other so well. And like I was talking about before, people always talk about who's your favorite line artist, who's your favorite, or your pencil favorite inker, favorite colorist. What really matters is
the guys I work with.
Absolutely, but what also matters most is how do they complement each other when they come together, Yeah. And these guys, they form Voltron. We form Voltron when we come together on a book. It is much better than just the parts individually. And that's why Vinicius, his coloring, I mean, he's really sublime, with kind of the texture and the shading. So, I mean, this is what I appreciate about all these guys. All these guys realize that at the end of the day, we are making indie books. They don't come out with the periodicity that, periodical books that come out on a monthly basis do. So our objective is to make every page a masterpiece. We want every time somebody turns a page for them to be like, holy smokes. We want folks to be like, dang, every time they turn the page. And that's, so I mean, that is the objective. And I feel like everybody brings it, 110%.
Yeah, man, I'm looking at your pages here.
Yeah, these are pencil pages that are available. So these are some amazing pencils, and I love the flow. The flow, the artistic flow of a book is something that I definitely learned as an editor back in the day, and it's really important that the panels carry your eyes where you want the person's eyes to go. The flow of the book is so key because it's a left brain, right brain experience when you're reading a comic. You got to get the sequential art right, but then the story, and this is why I didn't finish talking about just the story making process. It's a continually iterative process. So I write a ton, but by the time you get to what's actually, the letters, whether it's the dialogue or the captions within the story, it's not overbearing because the art has already told so much of the story. And to me,
I don't need words.
That's the objective.
In fact, so it's like, I don't want words on pages like this.
No,
I don't want words. I want like maybe some onomatopoeia, maybe some sound effects. Maybe one or two lines like "the fuck out of my face" or "have a boot," like some verbal sparring. But what you're doing here is you're capturing action to action, not moment to moment, not scene to scene. You're literally catching people blinking, right? Yeah. We don't have time to have a discussion like the one you and I are having while we're punching each other in the face. So it always takes me out of the action when you have some long form conversation going on between panels where they're exchanging blows.
Absolutely.
If you're moving from one place to another, you can have larger balloons with more words, but the more the action picks up, the more the panels are falling into place. You have to cut down on the dialogue to really let the action and the art speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
You could have these pages right here. This is not action. This
Right.
is moment to moment, right? So
That's right.
we're driving down the road, then we're going to the little ramp. Now we're going down the ramp. Then we're going to the vault. We're going inside and looking at the people on the surveillance camera. Like we're not in the type of time dilation that we're looking at here. So you can
Exactly.
use different types of dialogue, but it's all about pacing your story. And when you get into stuff like this, the pages are supposed to start flying by because that's what action
Absolutely.
is.
Absolutely. You don't want to bog it down with,
Yeah, we
people
can't have like
having
him
tried.
saying a paragraph and her saying a paragraph in the middle here, right? Like we can't have this guy being like, "So Black Tiger, you foolishly thought you could enter our hideout and escape undetected. No, you have stolen my sister and I am here to retrieve her, for you are not the ones who are supposed to be brainwashing her. Ah, but now you will have to escape my iron grip, Black Tiger, for you will not escape." Like, you can't do that shit. It's just gotta be like, hey, yeah, that's all we need to know. You can't have that type of conversation in this panel. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm not saying you do. I don't know.
Okay, I better go
Like
to
I said, I've
investigate.
seen the pages. I haven't seen them lettered. I haven't seen the book.
No, what you're saying is 100% true, man. And that's part of the art and the beauty of comics.
Yeah.
You know.
So tell me about this campaign, all right? First off,
Yeah.
tell me who Black Tiger is, and tell me what the setting of Black Tiger Hidden Dragon is, and then you can tell me
Mhm.
about the antagonists. But why don't we start with her right here?
She is she's the protagonist. She is the Black Tiger. Her name is Jen Fong. She's an assistant DA in this Western Seaboard city where she lives, where the prior Black Tiger had also been the hero, the Fist of Justice for decades, and that was her father. She comes upon, and if you read Legacy of Fury, you'll see how she comes upon the secret of the Black Tiger and her family, and how she becomes the Black Tiger. Her objective here as a hero. Her father, who was a prior Black Tiger, he was defamed both as the Black Tiger and as a cop. He was a captain in the police, and he was posthumously defamed. So she has, just like any good martial arts movie, she needs to restore honor to her family. She needs to restore honor to the name of the Black Tiger, as well as to her name, the Fong name. And she gets to do so while kicking a lot of butt and doing a lot of superpowered, supernatural martial arts. This is a mantle that has been passed down throughout thousands of years. So it's a power, and she now is the wielder of this power. And it gets good. It gets really fun, and there's a lot of martial arts action in here.
And is that power the Hidden Dragon?
That is definitely a power.
I mean, as
There are
we
more
see
powers
later down here, we get this page. This page is one of my favorites. You
Yeah.
get like the dragon materializing, right? And she also does that in the pencils much
Yes,
later down.
indeed.
She like spits out the dragon, the hidden
Yes.
dragon, right? Right? Where
Yeah.
is it? It's down here. It's farther down. It's right here. Why vomit a dragon on you?
That's right.
Dope.
That is like dragon barf.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt. That's
Yeah,
gotta
so
hurt
that's like
coming
the
out.
hidden dragon, right? The power of the dragon is hidden within the Black Tiger. That's kind of neat,
That's
I guess. I don't know if I'm completely making shit up now.
No, you're actually right on course, and you'll learn more as you read the story as to the unlocking of these different powers.
So who are the antagonists in this regular, seemingly mundane everyday world with a martial arts history shrouded in mysticism? Who are the bad guys?
So you learn more about those guys that she was fighting, the Five Fingers of Death. Think of them as and they are five of the most of the deadliest men on the planet, and they each have a different. Yeah, there they are, right there. They each have a different style that they fight with. On the right, that is the Escrimador. He is a Filipino stick fighter. Yep. Next to him is the pugilist, who's a boxer. Next to him, hard to see, is an African wrestler. And then you have Touch of Death, who's like
Raiden.
yeah,
He's
exactly,
Raiden.
exactly. But he's it's more of like kind of kung fu,
Dim
26
Mop
chambers.
kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, nice.
And then next to him is
and then
a
there's
shinobi.
Sasuke, and then there's Sasuke over here.
There you go, because you got to have your shinobi.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So those are the five, but think of them really. They're the hand. You know, they're the punishing hand of this villain that she's coming up against. But now she's learning who the head of this organization is, and that is not a name that I'm going to give to you right now. But she is.
I mean, you'd be spoiling it, right?
That's right.
This is the African wrestler dude right here, I assume.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited to see what he can do. Because grappling in comics isn't always well portrayed. Like strikes, you can get strikes, man. Like this right here is really cool. And you have a dynamic motion for like impact, right? Or shooting or anything that has like a cause effect in comics is very fun to portray. Grappling is a lot harder to make believable, to make it feel like. That was one of the reasons that the Badger was so great. Mike Baron would write an action scene, but the artist was really able of, to capture the martial arts in there, because it was a lot of joint locks and flips and throws and stuff. So in a way it was like cause and effect, but here, him grabbing her and flexing her over his leg. That's a cool move, right? And I really want to see how more of the art is portrayed when he's the one in the driver's seat, doing the stuff.
And I think folks will have fun.
He just throws her on the floor.
I think folks will have fun, because you'll get to see different forms of martial arts ultimately. That was a big part of it. I mean, there's capoeira in the book as well. So you get to see different fighting forms, which is always fun. It's kind of the Enter the Dragon kind of a thing,
Right.
You get to see different fighting forms.
Yep, definitely. I like the multiple different types of action in my comics. I mean, I just like action in general. All right, so there's a big villain. He's got his 5 fingers of death. Together they are able to execute the exploding heart technique. Except they're coming up against her and her hidden dragon, and maybe they don't know about that. Maybe the guy leading them does, which is why he's trying to get the dragon out of her. Once again, I'm just, spinning my wheels here. I should just shut up.
You're doing a good job, Neff.
No, I'm not. So tell us about the campaign. How many pages is this particular book? I know if we get all of the books, it's 350 pages. So this one is 88 full color action packed pages for the finale of Hidden Dragons. This concludes Black Tiger Hidden Dragon, the way Legacy of Fury, which was basically book 1, was a self-contained. This was a 2-parter, but there are going to be more Black Tigers, I assume. Of the 350 pages, this is 88. And it's $25. You're asking $25 for the 88 page book, which I think is a pretty good deal, right? How much of this is done? How much of the book is completed?
All of the line art, at this point, about 80% of the colors and about 75% of the letters.
Got it. Nice.
So we are
75% of letters. Like, it's right there. It's almost finished then.
Yeah, we're pretty well down the road.
Right.
So I mean, one of the things we wanted to, and I've tried to do this throughout the different campaigns. If I don't have the book completed, at least to have a really good segment of the book completed. So people, that's one risk that's out the door. I want folks to know you're going to get your book. So it's trying to mitigate that risk to the best of my ability. But I did need to get the campaign going just from a timing perspective. So I wasn't able to complete the book before launching the campaign.
Yeah. I mean, I don't ever really think that people who are in the process of crowdfunding their comics are going to have a 100% completed and printed comic when they go to crowdfunding. Otherwise it would just be pre-orders, and they wouldn't be focusing on giving 10% of everything that they make to a platform that isn't necessarily going to advertise them in any way, which is something that we should talk about in our 1 minute that we have left before the hour is up. That's what happens when you get me talking, right? You do have these web reader versions. Now I want to ask you, your last campaign, was it for Magnet and the Posse that you worked with Global Comics to do digital fulfillment? Why not do that again? What is the web reader version?
So the web reader was also a part of that. So the web reader was the main kind of way that folks would read the books digitally. And then Global Comics gave people just a little extra something. So they would get a year's worth of access to the Global Comics platform.
Yeah.
So that was more of like just a yummy add-on. So, just kind of yummy.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah. But so it's always been about digitally. It's been about the reader.
So the web reader version is a digital version. It's not specifically formatted for any particular device.
That's right. That's right.
Cool.
So it takes you to the Beyond Time Comics website, and that's where you'll read it.
Got it.
Yeah.
Why is the web reader version of Legacy of Fury twice the price of these others?
Because it's literally twice as long. So here's the best way to think about it. Think of Legacy of Fury as 6 issues, and think of each of the 2 Hidden Dragon volumes as 3 issues. So, and that was really kind of when I wrote it out.
Yeah, 6 and 6.
Yeah, exactly.
So, did you plan it out to be 6 issues? Did you think, you wrote in a story arc, obviously. So when you wrote, I'm assuming you write with panels and pages in mind, right? You break down pages into single thoughts, single sentences, right? And then you arrange the panels in order to convey that sentence or that thought the most effectively as you can in a visually appeasing manner, which is how you tell sequential stories. So I'm assuming that you write your overarching narrative and then you do like your breakdowns for how many pages you're going to need for this, and this. So you make 6 beats or 5 beats and you kind of split one of them. And then you do your beat sheet for the issue so that you can say what happens on each page that moves the plot from point A to point B where you can close the issue. Exactly. Since you're doing that, can you easily chop these books into 6 issues?
Well, in fact, they are. And when you read the books, they are fundamentally broken into issues, and
they almost like have their own covers too.
Nah, you're giving away all the secret sauce, baby. So
are you going to chop these books into floppies after you're done selling them as graphic novels?
I don't know if that'll ever happen, but
why?
But the reason, so here's the. It all depends.
It should absolutely
I agree.
happen.
If I can find the proper distribution mechanism, I would do that. So this is what I have. You'll notice that there are 3 covers, right?
Yes.
The three covers are literally, it's 3 issues. So each cover represents what happens in each of the respective issues. So the Vieira cover that has the car scene, that's in basically the first, because each issue is 25 plus pages. So that's in the first 25 plus pages. Then basically the one thing I did do, which I hadn't done with any other covers, is the splash page that Rod did of the entry of the 5 Fingers of Death was so amazing that I actually used that as a cover basically for 5. And then the 6th one is the Rini cover, because that's where you take the journey into feudal Japan and to ancient Mayan culture as you learn more about the power of the Black Tiger. So you're 100% right.
Yep. I kind of figured that a guy like you's forward thinking would be able to split his graphic novels 2-part series into 20-ish 24-page issues, 6 of them. I mean, I'm only doing 4 or 5. I'm still not certain with like the ending number of pages for Vesuvius, but I'm going in the same direction where each little segment of the story, each act of the story is broken into an issue that is satisfied by 24 to 28 pages. Nice. And then each one of these moves the story along and gets progressively more compelling and exciting And, like, I think I'm looking at 4 or 5 issues at this point. But that's the idea. You crowdfund this thing, you crowdfund the creation of the graphic novel, then you have all the print files that you need, and you can chop those up however you want, whenever you want, if you find the right distribution network, or the right channels by which to put this into stores, or even, just print floppies and sell them at your comic book table at a convention, right?
Absolutely.
Those are coming back now. Those are coming back. We don't have to be trying to crowdfund all of our comics all the time. We can probably go back to doing business the way indie used to do business before crowdfunding became the staple. And that leads me to my third question.
Yes, sir.
It's going to be unpleasant. Okay, it's an unpleasant question.
This is like
not that. It's not that unpleasant. I'm not going to What's that?
Enema question.
This is not that. Well, I mean, maybe it's how much of the cost of this book are you having to shove up your ass? No,
pretty much.
Your last installment, right?
Yeah.
Of Black Tiger: Legacy of Fury. The first book made $5,800, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Black Tiger Hidden Dragon Volume 1 made $1,500 while it was in demand, right? It made $1,100 with 180 backers back during the summer of love in 2020, 2021. This was July 18th, 2021. Made $11,000. So you went from 5,000 on the first one, where you were, relatively unknown, to that Magna, The Last Pantheon, which I have really good art on that. That made 11,000 also, right, with 263 backers. With, it made 8,000 with 211 backers while it was funding, but it ended with 11,000 from 263 backers. Then we get into the more recent campaigns, but even recently with Magna and the Posse, you made $7K with 123 backers. 6K with 113 back in July 24th of 2022. Sadly, and probably just completely it is a shame, and I don't understand how this is happening. You're at $3,300 with 65 backers. Now, it's not like you haven't fulfilled. It's not like you're years late and don't do updates and anything. You've released multiple books pretty much on time for the most part, I'd say, hiccups and whatever. Why are you suddenly lacking so many backers and making less than half the amount that you were making at your lowest points? What is going on?
So I don't have answers to all of those. I mean, part of it is I know that I don't have as much ancillary material as I had in the prior campaigns. So the other campaigns, I had a lot of other stuff like, T-shirts and posters and all these different things. And those things really boosted my top line, but they kind of hurt my bottom line.
Right.
So
I'm just saying, look at the backer numbers. Forget the money.
No, that's another.
I mean, I'm selling $1,000 tiers, right? Don't look at the money. Look at the number of people backing your books. You had 211 on Magna. You had 263 on the first Black Tiger Hidden Dragon book. Right now we got 65. What is going on? Where'd all the backers go?
It's interesting, and I've been pretty transparent about trying to get feedback on the book. I've gotten great feedback on the books. People have enjoyed the books, and not too sure why it's not converting into.
I don't think it's you. I don't know. Are you looking at what's going on in crowdfunding right now? Do you look at other people's campaigns? Do you pay attention to what other people are doing? I know you're busy and you don't wear a tie and you're an investment banker and everything, but do you, in your free time, browse Indiegogo to see what comic book campaigns there are, or pay attention to the launches or Bancroft's calendar or whatever, or go on Kickstarter and browse campaigns? Do you pay attention to the field? Because I do look at the field.
It's
not just you. I love Dave Brink. He's not making nearly as much on Perfect 10 number 4 as he did on the earlier ones, either with financial totals or with his backers. Poor Matty Fowler is struggling to hit 5K on his $10,000 goal for, Tiger Blue. which was a
Yeah.
fantastic,
Which was
had a
amazing.
fantastic
I thought-
first and second issue. I mean, there was a good book. It was a solid book. Number 2 had 4 issues with some of the more prominent writers in the space, with Jose on art. It was good. There are a lot of books right now that aren't doing nearly as much as they should, or, 2 years ago, they're making like $10,000 less than they would have been. So it's not you per se, it's something else that we're seeing happen.
I'll tell you some other elements that I'm thinking of. I mean,
all right.
In 21, when I released those other books, people also had stimulus money. And I can particularly remember some people saying like, "Oh, I got my next stimmy check coming. I'm going to get your book." We live in a very different economic time right now. Everyone's feeling the impact of inflation. It's a different world, So I feel like
why aren't they just sending out more stimulus checks? They could do that. We sent $6 billion to, actually we sent $1 billion to Iran 2 days ago. Why couldn't they just, give that money to us?
Yeah, because they were giving the money to Hamas. But hey, let's not go there. The thing is, the reality of the matter is, I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, even as you're joking about them printing more money, I mean, don't we all have, like, to a certain extent, just say like, man, this whole house of cards, this can't continue to stand. Even the government realizes they can't continue to print money. And if we look financially at the history of our nation, I mean, it's like there have been some extreme things that have been done to the dollar. Whether it's devaluation of dollars, that whether it's the president deciding like, hey, you know what? It's no longer legal to hold gold, or it's the basically, and we have a lot of other financial things that are going on as well, I think, worldwide. But I think at the end of the day, there isn't much, what's the right word, confidence, in the financial system. I think everybody knows that something needs to give. No one knows what it looks like exactly. Holding on to dollars may not be the way, because dollars are definitely, they're fiat. So as long as we all believe that we can transact on it, we can. But honestly, there's nothing really backing it. So at the point when we feel like we can't transact with it anymore, then what the heck happens then?
I knew inviting the investment banker guy on the show to talk about the economy was a good idea. No, I think you're absolutely right. We're in a situation right now where people are feeling a dragging economy, uncertainty about the future. They, like you said, know that the government can't continue to sustain this reckless spending or printing money. We're coming up on an election year. I think next year is going to be even leaner. I don't think people are going to be spending money. And that's when I'm launching my big ass fucking Mavericks campaign, because I'm a moron, and I'm going to launch it like summer of 2024, which is like months before the election, when there's going to be no cover, like no availability for me to advertise, because it's all going to be election coverage, and there's going to be no way for me to find a marketable audience because everyone's going to be screaming about Donald Trump and Joe Biden again. It's a brilliant idea for me to launch next summer. Great. I love it. I love this idea. It's fantastic. But no, you're right. We're struggling, right?
We are struggling.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. At the end of the day, our objective is, I think, like you said, it's once you have the files, you now have those assets. And maybe you aren't able to use those files in 2024 the way you want to. But you know what? You have the files. You have the assets.
Yep.
So right now, it's like, it doesn't feel good to see your numbers going down, but we have,
I neglected the chat. I'm a shitty host. I neglected the chat. There's some funny stuff going on. John Rossi says he has Iron Fist vibes, and he wonders if she has dragon powers, but Mo Biggs was making a callback to last week's guest saying, how did the Black Tiger react to the news that Bigfoot knows karate? Which is good. Is it, a nice cut, callback.
I think we need a showdown. Use martial arts stronger.
Right? Right, I'm pretty sure that your chick that can vomit a dragon has it on Bigfoot, but I don't know. We won't count him out yet. I was making the joke that you and Maddie should do a crossover, Tiger, Tiger, Black and Blue, because I think that would be hilarious. I think that would be dope, man. Like we should get people.
We all feel like we're getting
like
beaten Black and Blue right now.
It's, you know, we do. Both of you guys, really. Like the economy is not anybody's friend.
No.
And with what's going on in crowdfunding, with so many people being turned off to, soured to, the general community in Comicsgate, with the feel that like so many people either aren't supporting or have been supportive of or whatever. It's become so cumbersome to try and sell comic books on a crowdfunding platform like this, when what we do is rely upon word of mouth predominantly on YouTube and on Twitter to sell our books and market our books to a very select audience. So you mentioned earlier about marketing, and I know that as a smart guy, you have a marketing and advertising budget factored into what it costs to make your book. How are you planning to advertise this book? Are you planning to advertise this book off the platforms to try and get more people interested in it? Or are you going to try and make like a blitz to see if you can get a last minute ad spot or something to get this, life injected back into this campaign?
Ads work. I can't say that I'll get dollar for dollar my money back, but advertising does work, and I'm definitely a proponent of it. So advertising dollars, they're definitely going out in the second 30 to see what we can do to boost the campaign. The other thing, though, is honestly, I'm also looking beyond the campaign. Been talking with a distributor. He's out of, I want to say he's out of Arizona. Is it? Oh man, I want to remember the name of the company. I don't want to say it was Momentum. Oh gosh, but basically, this guy, he's kind of going. He's putting comics back in mom and pop shops. And
nice.
And I think that's the way, because the way I got introduced to comics as a kid, it wasn't going to a direct market shop. I didn't know what that was. It was picking up comics on a spinner rack at a local drugstore. So this guy,
that's a good idea.
He's putting books in mom and pop shops, places, you name it, whether it's stores that are selling weed or whatever, but
dispensaries.
Just making books more readily available to folks. And now there's a limited number of books you can put on the spinner rack, of course.
I was going to say, I hate being the naysayer. I hate being the wet blanket, but I'm very good at it. What is to keep us on those spinner racks and not, say, Marvel or DC, which can move a shitload more books, sell them at much better margins for the mom and pop shops because their cover price is $4.99?
They could, but the thing is, that's just not their model right now. Their model right now is still the diamond model. So don't get me wrong. Those guys could pivot at any moment, but this is really my thought about it. I mean, it's like, how much does Disney really care about publishing comics? How much does Discovery really care about publishing comics?
No, comics are a known loss for them. They're really not that invested in printing and distributing the comics. That's why they're actually with Penguin now, Marvel, and Image went with Random House. DC's still doing its own thing, and they're going through Lunar. Lunar doesn't really help them on the publishing production side, but with Penguin handling Marvel doesn't have to do the publishing and printing element. They can just make the book and focus on entertainment, and then chop it there and not have to worry about getting it printed, getting it manufactured, adjusting the print files and all that other shit that Penguin Random House does. And they've got connections in the printing world, so they've got a better deal anyway. And same thing for Image with Random House. I know Random House as a publisher has deals with printers internationally, so that might even work better in their favor. We're seeing a lot of those people like lean into the the book venues also, right? Or at least they're trying to lean into the book venues to compete with manga, to put graphic novels on the shelves. So I think you're right. I don't think they're interested in going to mom and pop shops. Mom and pop shops don't have literature sections. So It's not like they're going to be of the things that are the best selling products in their respective genres and fields. The mom and pop shops aren't going to be stocking the top literature, even though that's the stuff that would sell. I could see them hosting some comic books because they don't know any better.
They don't know any
honestly better. Honestly that's what it is. It's like if they're gonna put your book, no offense, John, but if they're gonna put Black Tiger on a spinner rack in their shop, it's because they don't know any better. It's because they don't know that
it's not because they know. Yeah, it's not because they know the books. It's basically it's just
like
just a consignment.
You're giving them the opportunity to sell your book because you're going to them with the book and saying, why don't you sell comic books? Give it a shot, do it on consignment, whatever. Try this model, because that's not the model that you're going to get with Marvel and DC. My one concern is that if stuff like that starts working out, they'll be able to find publishers that do better deals and have books with broader appeal. I don't mean appeal like as in they're good. I mean like appeal as in more people know them. Like, oh, look, it's, Rick and Morty. Yeah, I like Rick and Morty. I smoke weed. Right. Oh, look, it's Black Tiger. What the fuck is a Black Tiger? Looks cool. I'll check it out. Absolutely. That's the type of person I am. But some motherfucker going in there to pick up his Pickle Rick to smoke on the weekend, seeing Rick and Morty being like, yeah, all right, I'll totally pick that up from wherever the fuck it's being published at now. Or Dark Horse putting out a whole new line of comics, right? Even though they're in this shitter. They're picking up a whole bunch of brand new properties to try and license and sell. So that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about trying to get it into places like mom and pop's stores, putting all of our attention into growing and building that network. And then there's nothing to keep those people, those retail locations at all interested or invested in distributing our things. Like they're not retail. They're not comic book shops. They're not retailers. They can do whatever. And there's a lot of time and a lot of effort to sell maybe 1 or 2 comic books a week. Like you're not putting your stock of 100 comic books a month on their spinner rack, right? If we're looking at all the comic book shops in North America, there's less than 1,000 at this point, right?
Yeah.
And so when a comic book has 10,000 issues a month, which is kind of like the bar standard for a successful comic at this point, everyone who's selling below 10,000, it's kind of like a not such a great comic, at least by industry standards. 10,000 used to be the gold standard of a successful, like a hit comic. You know what I mean? If you're selling that, you're selling 10 issues across every single store in America. Or, you're selling 50 issues at one because you're not selling any at 5 of them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's a mentality in industry distribution that you need that volume of sales. You're not going to be printing or you're not going to be shipping 10,000 issues per month, clearly, because you don't have access to 1,000 dispensaries or 1,000 mom and pop stores, even though there are more mom and pop stores in America than there are comic book shops. But you don't have the stock, is what I'm saying. You're not printing 10,000 issues a month to give to all of these people. You're putting them in maybe like 5 mom and pop stores and slowly growing that network. But the amount of time and effort, energy, and all of it that's invested into calling the people, going and talking to them, showing them the books, getting them excited, putting the spinner rack in, getting the books there, making sure that they get put on the shelf, like all of that shit. I could not take that on, man. I am way too busy with my process, like we were talking about earlier, just doing layouts, checking pencils, checking colors. Like, I don't have fucking time for that. You're talking about building an entirely new distribution chain. Fuck that.
Well, there's somebody that's already doing it. That's the beauty of it. I'm just getting on board with somebody that's already doing it. No, you're 100% right. I think at the end of the day, first and foremost, 10,000 units, that's sad. I remember when companies would stop publishing a book when they did 30,000 units or less. The fact,
but that was back in the day when there was a lot less comic books on the market.
There's a lot less comics on the market, that's for sure. But there are, even in the direct market, there's 3 times as many direct market stores that existed at the time compared to right now.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like,
easily.
So
easily.
I agree. It's like I think ultimately what we all have to do is, as producers of comics, is just we have to find different ways to get our books out there, and then you have to find a way to build your own lists of customers. Like for me,
Right.
I have a list of people that have been purchasing the books over time. The problem is from an economic standpoint, people just aren't doing as much as they used to. So, like you said, I mean, it's like even though my distribution list is way bigger than it was when I did Legacy of Fury or Hidden Dragon Volume 1, people are just economically in a place where they're not gonna back.
Right. That's why you got to give them options to buy at less expensive tiers. Like if it were me, you know what? We're not going to do if it were me. I'll tell you about what if it were me in the back room if you want to know. But you have a comic book series that is collected as a graphic novel, which means you have 6 floppies effectively, right? I would try and make a potential customer able to get something at a lower price point. I've seen, going to the conventions that we've gone to this year, while there is more content in a graphic novel, maybe sometimes by like a factor of 3 or 4, like you could either get a 20-page book or you could get a 400 or 200-page book. You could get the floppy for $5 and you could get the 200-page book for $20, right? Like it's 4 times as expensive. You get 10 times the pages. Like that's no brainer math right there, right? 20 pages for $5, 200 pages for $20. People take the $5 option because they'd rather have something for less than pay more, period. Than pay more in this economy. People do not want the better deal. They just don't want to pay $20. They want to pay $5. They don't care what they get for $5. They want an option for $5 is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And it's astonishing because walking around these conventions this year, looking at who's got what, is selling what sales they're making, it's apparent that people would like to buy 4 different comics, right? And get something at 4 different tables for $5 each, then put down $20 at one table and get one thing that's, very sizable or girthy for Mobigs.
Yeah.
So what I would say is you're offering great content to price value. You really are. Your prices are very good. 350 pages for what, like $75, $80 in the tier for all of the books. That's pretty good, but like that's still $80 something. And people are going to look at that and go, that's a lot of content, man. The per page ratio, price to page ratio is really good. That's still too much for me. I would much rather have something that's $5 that's 20 pages long. That's 24 pages long, right? Where the price ratio is still, 20 to 30 cents a page in that range. I would like to, still pay something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Creators Outlet Will says, but what if the 200-page book sucks? Then you're out $20 and have no money left to buy anything else because Build Back Better, that was just the tick off John. Oh, that was just to tick off John. Sorry. Back to newsprint. No, he's got a point. Like if you don't like the book, the big book that's $20 because it sucks, you're out the money. Luckily at the convention, you usually get the pitch directly from the creator or the writer. If they're good at pitching, they'll flip through the book with you and show you some stuff. You get a feel for all of the art. It's very much a test drive before you buy sort of environment. So you're not going to get something you don't like. I have sold lots of books. I sell a lot of books at conventions, John. I sell about 60 books on average at like a 2-day convention. In my opinion, for a nobody creator who has one book out that no one's ever heard of, that's pretty good because I think I know how to sell shit to people. And I don't have a $5 floppy, I've got just Mobigs with his floppy comic comment. I've got a $20 to $25 book, and I've got a $10 anthology which is on sale. So I'm not moving like less expensive merchandise, and that's the primary point of feedback that I get is the price point's a little high. Do you have anything smaller with less pages?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like that's the big the most customers that I lose. That is kind of like the feedback that I get them going, yeah, maybe next time I'll come back. If only you had something that was less expensive, even if it's less pages.
Okay.
And that's been marketed, like I'd say it like about, I would be doing easily 30% more sales if I had one. And that's just the people that don't buy the big one. I'm not even talking about the people who would come just for seeing a small one. Um, Sorry, I know that the nomenclature is Mo's gonna have a field day with that in the chat if he's still there. Just because someone has a good pitch doesn't mean the book will be good. That is true, 100% true.
Absolutely.
Speaking of, so you run a business, right? And you run social media account, right? For you, your personal account. I don't. Do you have a business account or is it all just you?
That's all I do is business on that account, though. On
Okay.
the
So on your business account, would you ever tell a customer to get fucked?
by no stretch, that's absurd.
Right. So it's absurd for a business account to be weighing in on culture war politics and then getting offended at one of your customers who has a bad experience with one of your books. So if a customer of yours was talking about, hey, indie comics as a whole is kind of discouraging to me, and I feel like these indie creators out here every day not really doing right by their customers, and you got offended at that for some reason, you took that personally, would you then go after that creator and tell them to get fucked?
Well, no,
That's
'cause I
not
wouldn't.
professional, right? Is that
That's
professional?
not professional.
Like, would
Not
no,
professional, and I wouldn't
would
get offended in the first place.
right? Don't get offended because it's not about you, and even if it
No.
is about you, it's one person's opinion on the internet. Like even if there are people agreeing with them, I would reach out and say, hey. As a business person, this is my business. What could I do to earn your confidence and earn your dollar? Only if I'm in a complacent place where I think that there are no other options for you, where I hold the monopoly on the product, am I going to tell you to get fucked. Only if I'm like Gillette or or any of these big brands that are going to look down its nose at its customers and tell them to behave a certain way because we have the product and you can't have it without our say so. Am I going to act that way? And that's just, I think that's a shitty way of doing business. It makes the type of company that I wouldn't want to do business with. So, in that circumstance, what would you do if someone was complaining about, even you specifically? I don't feel like John's delivered on his promises. What would you do from your business Twitter?
If I need to have a conversation with someone, I definitely, whether it's via email, I have no problem offering up the opportunity to talk to me, to figure out, especially if they're a customer, because at the end of the day, customers are your lifeblood. I had a gentleman who I think maybe he saw me on a show, and he said some things about me writing Magna and kind of like me like culturally misappropriating, Magna.
How can
I
this
mean,
black dude be writing about Vikings?
right? Exactly. I mean,
Morons.
at the end of the day, I don't need to. That's not something that I need to really defend myself on.
No.
All I told him is I just said, like, at the end of the day, people vote with their dollars. If you like what I'm doing, I would love to have you as a backer. But if not, that's the beauty. The beauty is you get to choose for whatever reason, whether you don't like how that person looks, or you get to choose. And there's nothing. I'm not going to be offended by that.
Capitalism. Let the market decide.
Let the market decide. But I'm not gonna have a flame war with somebody, because whatever they're mad about, it's not worth it. And it's
But
like
you could farm up some. But you could farm up drama bucks, right? Like if you tell someone you don't like to get fucked, and then like get your followers to be mad at that person and like rally around you because that you make it like they personally insulted you, you could get drama bucks out of it, right? Like you could get a lot of people exacerbated. How dare that person, insult John? John, I'm gonna buy another copy of your book. I'm gonna put another pre-order in of your thing, right? Like, do you think that would work in this economy?
You
Do
know
you
what?
think that that's like
I
a
don't
valid tactic?
You know what? Everybody's got to figure out who they are. Everybody's got to figure out what they're willing to do. And
Mo says, if you guys had listened to the teachings of the Black Israelites, you would already know that the Vikings were black.
let's
And,
go,
you know,
Mo.
I can't argue with that. I can't argue with that, Mo. It's everything, man. We was Raiders.
Oh, that's
Terrible,
awesome.
absolutely terrible. But I don't think that the drama farming thing is gonna make nearly as much money for people anymore, and you're dividing your audience at this point. I'm not saying
Yeah.
kumbaya with everybody, but I'm saying if you're a business and you're running a business account, it's not your personal account. You're not getting into a flame war with someone on a person to person basis. It's like Amazon coming out and telling someone to get fucked because Jeff Bezos has a problem with them. Like, that's a great way for people to look at Amazon and go, whoa, you're taking pot shots at an individual who purchases your stuff. Yeah, I'm not going to support you anymore. You don't get any more of my money. Go fuck yourself, brand. Silence, brand.
Yeah, no, that's problematic. And at the end of the day, just as we make it harder for other people to we make it harder to expand the pie. Because at the end of the day, there are a lot of us that are, we're hardcore fanboys, fangirls, but you want to expand the pie so that people can just enjoy what's happening in this whole renaissance. So my personal perspective is that the drama may be good for the folks that are really hardcore, but it turns away the folks that are probably more marginal, that would want to be involved, but feel like this isn't anything that I want to be a part of. And my thing is, at the end of the day, we're all trying to figure out how to make this thing work. If we want to make this thing work, then I think we've got to have a broader view. About our business.
If we're seeing numbers go down and we want it to work, we need to figure out a way to get numbers to go back up. And the best way to do that is to get more people buying the books, which kind of implies that you need to invite people into the pool. You need to make it a fun pool party where people are getting cool stuff and they feel like they enjoy being a part of something, not that there's an obligation to prove that you belong in the pool. That's just stupid. If you want to have a healthy consumer movement, you need consumers, you fucking moron. Anyway, sorry, John, I'm not calling you a fucking moron specifically. No, not. I'm saying God bless Snuggy Jr. is what I'm saying. So yeah, do you have anything else to say other than let's get Black Tiger, some more backers. Let's get it a little bit higher up on the earnings list.
Yeah, other than getting Black Tiger higher on the earnings list, I always appreciate your your insights. I know we'll talk a little bit behind, backstage.
My candor.
No, man. To me, it's you don't need to pull punches. At the end of the day, I mean, it's like we should all have our big boy pants on. We should all be able to, talk. And even if we disagree about something, we should still be able to be cool about it.
Yeah.
It's that's one thing that I find challenging nowadays. People are very easily offended, and offense is not something that's going to help any of us in any way.
Yep. What's going to help us is the opposite of offense. It's putting on a smile when someone tries to spit in your eye and enrolling them into backing your book by being just that fucking cool about it. You know what I mean? Like, you can't have enemies if people are your friend. Like, if you make them your friend, like this, I gotta say that there's something that's been lost along the way, called how to have customers and how to make people happy. When all you're doing is dividing and being miserable that other people don't think the way that you do, you lose the ability to encourage them to think the way you do by realizing that it's more fun on your side of the line. And that's how you lose these battles. Yeah. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We had a good show, had a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out with me on a Monday night, John, when Frequency Girl is off with her friends and singing her songs. And like Aldous said, not here to punch me in the arm. So
I hope you
yeah,
get more than just frozen pizza tonight, buddy. But
yeah.
if it's your frozen pizza,
me too. Probably going to be frozen pizzas though. If you liked the content, give a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, that's probably because you unsubscribed. That's okay. I understand. I don't fault you. But you can always click the bell to know when we go live, because notifications and shit. And yeah, we just thank you very much, and stay tuned to the frequency. I have to click the thing for the outro. I'm bad at this without my co-host. All right, goodbye, everybody.
peace out.